I've been in real estate for 30 plus. I wished I'd have done it 30 years ago. I'm serious. I've been with 3 major companies in my market, and RE/MAX is, I mean, such a breath of fresh air. It is absolutely incredible. I'm not just saying that for, I mean, I'm a agent-centric agent. In other words, I think brokers have a lot of things that they want to accomplish. Agents have a lot of things they want to accomplish. Well, at RE/MAX, it seems to just fit, whereas the other brokers I've been with have. So anyway, I love RE/MAX, and I will never be anywhere but RE/MAX. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about, you guys, is farming. And it sounds odd in this day and time to talk about farming, because when I started selling real estate, I wore a 3-piece suit and a tie in Austin, Texas, and knocked the doors in 110 degrees. That was farming. Now, I made a huge mistake. I picked a very bad neighborhood to farm because the people loved it and never moved. So that's why we're going to talk about the very first thing, which is choosing a farm. Okay? But first of all, I got to tell you, I haven't farmed in many, many years, and I got this mailing, and it really got me off on, well, I haven't farmed in a long time, and when I did, it really worked well. So I think I'll go ahead and start farming again. So the bottom line is that, you know, it's really a very dependable source of income. I mean, my farm income is going to be the same and a little bit more year after year after year, and I can depend on it. I know what it's going to be. Okay, the results prove themselves. You've got an enhanced perception by the consumers in the farm of you as a specialist. As a matter of fact, I market very, very hard against non-specialists in my neighborhood. I actually support other people who sell homes in my farm. I'll do videos that say, hey, listen, if you're thinking about selling your home, the #1 agent in the farm, the #1 agent in this neighborhood is other. Now, what I mean by that is statistically, I'm actually the #1 agent, and then there's a couple others. But if you take all the sales, most of them are 1s and 2s by people who sell one house in that neighborhood who don't even know the neighborhood, right? So statistically, others sell homes for less, and it takes longer, and more of them come off the market unsold. So I encourage people to deal with one of us who knows the neighborhood, preferably me, right? So an enhanced perception by the people who live there, when they start realizing, and you've done your job branding and marketing, they just pick up the phone and call you, and typically you don't even have to compete with anybody else. That's what's nice about farming, because it does put you in that position. And then the referrals start to, marketing brings in the initial, but the referrals start to pile up. And pretty soon, you're just rolling and rolling and rolling, okay? And quite sincerely, a lot of people ask me, well, does the myth still exist? Well, I'll tell you what, let me ask y'all, does the myth still exist? And I just kind of gave it away calling it a myth, didn't I? How long do you guys think it takes to make a farm profitable?
3 years.
3 years?
6 months to a year.
6 months to a year? Anybody else? Okay, I've heard all that. I started a farm in October, and I was the #1 agent in the farm in less than 6 months. Okay? And I've done that more than one time. The reason I got away from farming was because of a strong belief I have in specialization. And farms tend to be limited to the size of the neighborhood, right? So the bulk of my income comes from a specialty called 1 acre plus homes. And I can expand that as far as I want to go. I'm not stuck to a neighborhood. Now, my farm in Berry Creek, should I stop moving? So
you're good. Don't worry about it.
So my neighborhood, Berry Creek, is limited. So I branded myself within the neighborhood very, very strongly. But if I want to go farm another neighborhood, guess what I have to do? I've got to repeat the process. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay? But Berry Creek has a finite number of sales and a finite amount of income. And that's fine, because the income is worth the investment I put into it. Does that make sense, you guys? So in all sincerity, in absolute truthfully, I made over $100,000 in Berry Creek the first year I farmed it. Okay? First year. All right? All right, so let's take a look at how you choose a farm. Okay? And this is where I think a lot of people tend to falter, like I did. Okay? The first farm I ever took on, I went out there because I really liked the houses. I mean, they were nice houses. My goal was to live in one of them someday. Well, everybody's goal was to live in one of those houses and never move, and they rarely ever move. So I knocked on those doors and I did I worked my tail off and had a very, very small financial result from it because it was a very stable neighborhood. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Number of sales is turnover, okay? What is the turnover in an average neighborhood in the Woodlands, Texas, Spring, Texas? Were you in Spring or the Woodlands? Because Google Maps says Spring and Waze says the Woodlands. Okay. All right.
It's the same thing.
So what's average turnover? How often do people move?
7 to 8 years.
Okay.
2.7 years.
Okay. I think you made that up. What do y'all think?
No, I read that. That's the Woodlands anyway.
That's Woodlands? Okay. All right. Okay, so that's something you have to know. I've always heard people move 5 to 7 years. I can't find a neighborhood that turns over that fast. I've yet to find a neighborhood that turns over that fast. The best turnover I've found is if I can hit double digits, I'm really lucky. Okay? If people move 5 to 7 years, that's 16 to 20%. I've not seen it, period. I'm not sure where that comes from, but I've heard it ever since I got into real estate. Okay? So you've got to know the turnover in the neighborhood. The first neighborhood I farmed had the lowest turnover in the history of the United States of America. Okay? I'm convinced of that. So I looked long and hard before I started farming Berry Creek, which is in Georgetown, Texas, a suburb of Austin. And the turnover for Berry Creek was just over 11%. Okay? It's hard to hit if you hit the double digits. Now that's my market. Your market may be different. However, I've helped people coach, I've coached people all over the United States to start farms and get them going and dominate an area. And there are some areas where they had a hard time breaking 8%. Okay? So it's not a number that you have to hit. It's what's good in your market, and let's be one of the better numbers in your market. Does that make sense, you guys? So turnover is very, very important. You've got to know what that turnover is. I don't want to go farm an area with a 5% turnover when 2 miles down there's another neighborhood with a 12% turnover. Does that make sense, you guys? Just more opportunity to make money. The success ratio, that's the number of sales compared to the number of properties listed. Okay, so let me make it easy. If 100 properties are listed in a neighborhood, 50 close. What's the success ratio? 50%. Okay? And this is shocking, I know, but some neighborhoods have higher success ratios than others. Y'all remember 2009, 2010? I mean, we look back and go, how do we do that? How did we muddle through that and still make a really good living in real estate? Well, we're always going to make a really good living in real estate as long as we adapt. But there were neighborhoods in my town that had an 8% success ratio in 2009, okay? And you're going, wait a minute, do you tell the seller, hey, well, 8%, let's not, no. My attitude was, how do we be one of those 8%? What steps do we take to make sure that we're one of those 8%, okay? But and right now, you want a 32% success ratio or a 72% success ratio. Does that make sense, you guys? Mm-hmm. So if you don't know these numbers, you're randomly choosing a geographic area that may not provide the income you need. Does that make sense, you guys? I know the number stuff is kind of boring, but it's really, really important. Okay, the average price or listing. Whatever your general business is, my general business, I know my average price, and I didn't want to start investing and working in a farm area that had the same or lower. So I picked one where the average price was higher. Okay, fewer sales, higher commissions, no problems. All right, that's up to you. I do know people, as a matter of fact, very good friends who would rather work a lower price range with a lot of volume, with a lot of numbers. Okay, that's really kind of up to you. But you got to know the commission dollars are there. All right, the average days on the market, shorter's better, of course. So higher average commission, more average commissions faster because the days on the market is faster. Those are pretty good. Now, all those numbers don't have to be better than the average. And I'll tell you why. Berry Creek, for example, takes longer to sell than the average neighborhood. Okay, when the market in Austin, Texas, SMSA is 52 days, Berry Creek is 72 to 80 days. But it's a very consistent year after year after year. So I'm okay if it takes a little longer, knowing that the success is going to be there, all right? And then the hotness ratio is something very few people realize and understand. And I always want to know what's going on in a neighborhood. The most current statistic you can have is the hotness ratio. Does anybody know what that is? Okay, it is the number of pendings compared to the number of actives. The higher that ratio, obviously, the hotter the neighborhood. So I love going in and getting a listing when a neighborhood has 3 actives and 7 pendings, or 10 actives and 32 pendings, okay? If it comes down to 50-50, now we're starting to see a normal market. If we're starting to see a lot more actives than pendings, then guess what? The neighborhood's slowing down. And you can see that. Mind
saying that ratio again? I'm sorry.
It's the hotness ratio, the number of pendings compared to the number of actives. Okay? So, and that can change through the year. For example, in my neighborhood, Berry Creek, it will be, the hotness ratio could be 50, 60, 70% in the spring, and it could be 15 to 20% in the fall. Okay? Actually, I just did a video for Berry Creek and told everybody in Berry Creek about, should we put our home on the market in the 4th quarter? You know, what's the real truth about this? Because everybody asks it. So I gave them some information and statistics on it. So anyway, you guys, these are the numbers. You really have to know those. If you don't know the numbers, then once again, it's a random chance. All right. So this is just kind of these slides are really basically a details on the numbers that I went over. Okay. The success ratio is based on your market. Once again, it's all based on your market. The success ratio in my market might be 76%. In your market, it might be 81%. Okay. So how is it compared to your market? So if my average market is 76%, I'd really like my neighborhood that I'm going to farm to be that or better, not that or lower. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. The hotness ratio I just talked about, the number of homes pending, and I'm going to send all this to Frank, by the way, compared to the number of homes active, shows you the most current picture of how hot that neighborhood is. Does that make sense, you guys? Everybody know what? Okay. Obviously, we've talked about the higher average price, the days on market. And here are literally 2 neighborhoods that I just helped an agent analyze. Okay. The number of sales, 91 in one, and the farm he chose was 87. Another one was 78, 41 the days in the market, the neighborhood he chose. Average price, obviously higher. The success ratio much, much higher, and the hotness ratio much, much higher. So he's trying to decide between these 2 neighborhoods. And we went down, and I said, well, what's the difference in the neighborhoods? And he goes, well, there's really not much difference. One of them's a little closer to my house. So, well, let's find out. And here's how the numbers came out. He was shocked. Okay? It was very obvious which one he should choose. Because if you're going to invest $1,000 in marketing, would you rather invest $1,000 in marketing with the farm on the left or the farm on the right? Okay? You got to know your numbers. Okay? So here's another thing. What if there's somebody else in the neighborhood farming it? Is that okay? Well, quite sincerely, you guys, it's better to be first. It's always better to be first. Okay? If you can. Does anybody know if Red Bull is the best, finest, most awesome tasting energy drink on the market? Well, I've heard from people that drink those, who are mostly people under 22, right? A resounding no, absolutely not. It's not the best tasting. Well, it's got by far the best market share. Why? It was first. It was the first energy drink in that category. Okay? So if you're going to work a neighborhood or a type of property, being first is always best. All right? If you're not first, what do you need to do?
Be better. Stand out.
Be different. You got it. Now, anybody know who the #1 rent-a-car company in America was for decades and decades and decades? Of course it was. Who's #1 now? Why? They did something different. They approached the market differently. Where could you get a Hertz rent-a-car? At the airport.
Right.
That was it. What did Enterprise do? They came out to the neighborhoods, to the suburbs, and put rental car offices there. And they would also pick you up. Anybody ever have Enterprise pick you up? It's very, very cool. Anybody ever have Enterprise take you on a date like on the commercial? If you didn't, don't admit it. So Enterprise wasn't first, but they did something different. So if you go into your farm area and you are not first, and there's already somebody there, it doesn't have to scare you. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to just pepper you with different things, you guys, but one of my agents was going to start a farm, and everything was great, but she said, I really don't know if I want to start this farm because so-and-so dominates that farm. I said, he does? How many sales does he make every year? I don't know, but I see his signs all the time. Well, how many sales are in the neighborhood? Well, I'm not sure. Well, you don't know how many sales there are, period. You don't know how many he makes. So let's go find out. You know what his market share was the last year? 3.6%. But he'd been doing it so long, she thought he dominated it. Okay? She's now the #1 agent in that farm area. The second agent sells less than half of what she does. Okay? Now, I went into a farm area that the top agent was about 11%, #2 was 9%, and then those two were #1 and 2 year after year after year after year. Okay? But between the two of them, that was only 20 to 25 sales. Guess what that left? 90 to 100 sales. I mean, I figured, oh, so what? I mean, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a market share, and it might be a couple years before I'm #1, maybe, you know. But there's so many sales in that neighborhood. Berry Creek gets anywhere from 100 to 130 sales a year. I'm going to go get my share of it. So you don't have to be scared if somebody else, now if somebody has more than 20%, you guys, now you're starting to butt heads. Because the thing is, for every appointment you get where you go against them, or every appointment that you don't get because they got it, now you're starting to butt heads. But I wouldn't hesitate if somebody has less than 10%. I wouldn't even hesitate. Okay? Does that make sense, you guys? Any questions as we go? I'm open to questions. Open to new redneck jokes because Jeff Foxworthy doesn't do them anymore. Now you can create a new brand as well. And one of the things that I highly recommend in a farm, and I think it's one of the reasons that we have been so successful in getting started so fast, is because we create a brand in the farm. See the logo? See berrycreekhomes.com? Okay? We create an entire branding package around the farm. And I'll show you how to do that. So remember Haagen-Dazs, first in the high-end premium, Volkswagen, first in the little bitty car, high, very good gas mileage. Okay? You create a brand that's first and unique in your farm, and even if you're not the first one, if you create a brand, you're the first one that creates a brand. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. All right? And I haven't really accomplished this quite with Berry Creek yet, but I'm very, very close. But if anybody searches for a type of property, like homes on acreage in Georgetown, Texas, acreage homes for sale in Leander, Texas, things like that, they're going to see names like Bob Phillips. They're going to see names like Leona Jameson. They're going to see and they're going to see a site called oneacreplus.com. What do you think they're most likely to click on? Oneacreplus.com. Okay, that's my site. They're far more likely to click on a branded name than they are an agent's name. Far more likely. All right. Studies show that. Study groups show that. So that's why I don't really push Stuart Sutton as much as I push berrycreekhomes.com. Does that make sense, you guys? Yeah. Now, Stuart Sutton's always coupled with it, but we'll kind of go through this as we go also. All right. So know your numbers, be different, and create a brand. So let's go to the next one. Any questions on that, you guys? All right. If you don't have any questions, we're going to be done in like 20 minutes.
I got a quick question. So, berrycreekhomes.com, who is your provider for that website?
Remax.
Okay, so you've just adapted and customized?
I think Remax One has a proprietary site.
Oh, you're talking about your office.
Yeah,
Remax.
the office site. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I actually took the Remax site and started adapting those and using them. And then Tim said, "Hey, we're doing this site. Would you look at it and see if it's easier for you?" Actually, it was a little bit easier. There's not that much difference though. So I started using the Remax One websites, which aren't that different than the Remax websites.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Say that again, which ones aren't that much different?
It's just Remax One basically went to Real Estate Webmasters and said, hey, make us a site that all of our agents can use. And they're not just templates, you guys, where we all look alike. All of my sites, I have 8 Remax One websites, okay? And all of them look very different from each other, and they're
How many
branded very
assistants do you
specific.
have?
Huh?
How many assistants do you have?
That's a good question. Let me kind of clarify something real quick, you guys. I get this.
Were you finished answering the other question?
Real estate webmasters,
Real-
that's the answer.
Webmasters. Now,
Oh.
you can't really go get a Real Estate Webmasters website on your own without spending a ton of money, okay? So basically, the sites I use are easy to use. They're easy to edit, and I do all that myself. And it's really, they're not that different than what Remax of Texas provides, okay? Now, somebody said, how many assistants do you have? Let me explain how I work. I've been through the big giant team and gobs of production, and actually, in the 90s, I created a business card that said Stuart, Sutton, bazillion-dollar producer. And my clients would laugh when I handed that out. But I cycled back around. I was out of the real estate business for a while. I was actually running a web services company. But I came back in 2007. And I did things a little bit differently, okay? So we're the #1 Remax team in Central Texas, but here's the way I run it. And this is what we do. I manage all my own clients, okay? Me, an assistant, and a closer, okay? Now, I've got 7 agents, but they all list and sell. They don't, they're not just buyer's agents that I feed leads to. Now, I do give them, because I get a lot of internet leads, I do pass those leads on to them. But I manage my listings and my clients, and when the calls come in, I take care of them. I don't pass them to a buyer's agent. I go to, I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying this is the way I've chosen to do business, because I've cycled around. So when I go out on a listing appointment, I discuss with that seller the options that are out there. One of them is a team. And there's some big teams in our market that the person's name is at the top, but actually a listing specialist goes out to list the house. And that's what I did in the 90s. But I manage every single call, every single inquiry. I take care of all those. Now my assistant and my closer, handle all those details. But I run my clients and my business myself. So maybe that kind of answers with you how I do business.
It does, because a lot of people, when they call, they don't want a team member, they want the
Right,
person's name.
right.
And it's more of a one-to-one type of
Right,
relationship.
right.
And, my partner is my son, so when we go out on a listing, I may go out alone the first time. But then, they always know that there's somebody else there.
Right, I understand.
It's more work, because you don't have a lot of people working with you or doing all the work. And I get all the typing and all the stuff into the back agent. But we found a lot of people nowadays, they like it better than the huge teams where they never see the person.
Yeah. And it's quite sincerely, it's really a personal decision
Yeah,
when
it is.
you list your house. There are some people that, they like that big, their names everywhere, they're on the radio, they're, all that, and that's all well and good. But I've just been doing this long enough, I've built up a very good clientele, and my marketing brings in new business and helps me. And the people that I deal with tend to like the fact that when someone calls in their house, I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about branding the farm, okay? You don't have to sit down and do this, but I'm going to tell you. This is a really good exercise, okay? So I made a list of all the things that I do for my clients, okay? And then I really started focusing on, okay, what can I pull out of that really creates success for the people I represent, okay? And quantifying your performance is something that's important, but I'm going to show you how to do that without bragging, okay? None of my marketing ever says, I'm #1, Stuart's #1, we're the #1 team, I'm the #1 agent. None of it ever says that, okay? No piece I ever send out says that. What I'm focused on is providing marketing that tells them the kind of service they're going to get from me, which is unique to me. And if you don't have a service or something quantifiable that's unique to you, you need to really sit down and take inventory of that, all right? Identify your unique selling propositions, and then, you know, start writing a series of branding cards, okay? And I'm gonna get into what I'm talking about, but the only thing, and this is so powerful, you guys, I'm gonna put Frank on the spot and management and all that, but the only thing that says Stuart is awesome that goes out my door is a letter that my broker writes every few years. I've been there 5 years. We just sent out a second letter that basically said, and I'll tell you very distinctly what it says. It says, hey, this is Tammy Kress. I'm the owner broker at RE/MAX 1 where Stuart Sutton works. Now I know that you've worked with Stuart, and we are so happy that he's associated with us, but there's some things you need to know because you wouldn't know it because he isn't going to tell you. Okay, so I'm having her tell my clients how humble I am. Okay, so I humbly admit that I'm humble.
I love it.
Okay, so she says, Stuart has accomplished this, and by the way, outside of real estate, he does this, and you're just working with a great guy. Do you have any idea the impact that has?
That's awesome.
It is incredible. It raises me in the eyes of my clients because, quite sincerely, I am very uncomfortable telling my clients, you know, I just don't tell them the kind of production I do. It's just not something I'm comfortable doing. But even if I did, it's so much more powerful coming from somebody else. Okay? So if you guys, if I didn't have a family event tonight, you guys wanted to go bowling and said, hey, you want to go bowling with us? And I said, I don't know, I'm pretty darn good. You better watch out. Now, would you believe that more if y'all said, hey, Frank, you think Stuart would want to go bowling with us? And he said, hey, Stuart's a really good bowler. Don't bet your money. Which one would you believe? See what I'm saying? Okay, they'll believe somebody else. That's why testimonials are so important. That's why reviews are so huge.
It'd been nice if you could have worked for the Trump campaign.
That's nice of you. So anyway, let's talk about branding, you guys. The first thing you've got to do, you don't have to. A lot of people who farm don't do these things, okay? But the first thing I did was create a logo for my farm area. All right? Now my logos are very simple, very straightforward. See the little house? That's a little house, okay? Because this is real estate. So the important thing about a logo, you can do all kinds of different things, but you want it to be about 2.5 times as wide as it is tall, okay? All my logos are like this. Why is that?
You know, postcards.
Bottom of the print.
It's the eyesight. You take it all in at one time, okay? Your eyesight sees about 2.5 times there and there, so that's about what you're seeing. That's why it's better than that where you have to look up and down, okay? So it's very easy to get a logo. Go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, or Guru.com, or ask one of your kids or grandkids, okay? Very easy to get a logo. And use it specifically for that neighborhood, all right? Every piece of material that I have that goes to that neighborhood has the logo. Now you can tell that very subtly I made the logo the website, okay? So also start making your claim, all right? The leader in selling homes in Berry Creek. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. This is a true story. It's actually kind of embarrassing, not for me, but for the other person. I got a phone call when my first mailing went out that said the leader in selling homes in Berry Creek. And what made me the leader in selling homes in Berry Creek at that time? I didn't sell the most homes
You said so.
because I said so. That's exactly right. If it's in writing, it's believed. Now, I was the leader in selling homes in Berry Creek at that time because I was actually number 4 on the list if you took it all. But my homes actually sold closer to asking than any of the other agents, and they sold faster than any of the other agents. So in my mind, that made me the leader. And I mean, I didn't just make it up. But here's the thing, you guys. If you write it down and put it in print and put it in front of the consumer, they're far more likely to believe it. So the leader in selling. Now, when you want to do that is up to you. If you want to wait till you are the leader on paper and sell the most homes, that's up to you. Okay? But I was didn't realize this, but I was competing with a a fellow member of my office for listing, I didn't know it, they didn't know it. And the seller had this list of questions, you know, the questions they get off of, different websites, in menus and stuff like that. So they were asking me, how many homes did you sell in the last 90 days? How many, all these questions. Or where do you rank in your office? And I said, well, I'm not sure that's as important as you might perceive it to be. Why do you think that's an important question to ask? He goes, well, the other person said they were number one in the office. I said, what office were they at? He said, Breback's Wood, your office. And I said, okay. So I found out who it was, and they are number one in coming late to sales meetings. So you can make whatever claim you want. You do have to have, in my opinion, you've got to have something to back it up with. You can't just run around making claims that don't have something to substantiate. But when a claim is made, it does have impact, okay? All right, so branding, we're going to create a USP, the best move-up program in the market. We guarantee to sell your home and guarantee that you will love your, when you buy a home in the farm, we guarantee to sell your home in 39 days or you pay zero. We guarantee that you will love your new home or we'll sell it for free. So a USP is a unique selling proposition, and there are lots of them out there. Now, you guys, just about every single guarantee has some sort of caveat, okay? And a lot of agents have asked about the guarantees I've done in the past and currently, and say, well, how can you do that? That's just so much. Guys, I know agents that guarantee to sell your home in a certain amount of time and go buy it, who've never bought a house, okay? I started in 1997 making a guarantee to sell a home within 60 days, or basically the guarantee said, I'll guarantee to sell your home in 60 days or I'll pay you. And people would say, well, how do you do that? Well, all I would do if I hadn't sold it in 60 days, when we went to closing, I'd give them a check for $500. Now, do you have any idea how my listing skyrocketed because of it? See, a lot of people do it now, but nobody was doing it then. I was the first one in my market. And my first year, I think I wrote 2 checks for $500. Now, let's think about that. At that time, my average price was about $280,000. What's $280,000 times 3%? Anybody? Oh, come on, you can do this in your head.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you came to me and said, hey, I've got someone who wants to list their house in your market, would you pay me a 25% referral fee? I'd say, well, of course. What's 25% of 8,400? 2,100. I just guaranteed to give them $500 if I didn't sell it, which is cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay? So that guarantee pushed the number of calls I got way up. Now, that's not what I do anymore. I'm going to share with you what I do. But you've got to do something unique. You've got to do something that they're going to remember. Okay? The best way I can think of to talk about a unique selling proposition. Do y'all know about all this? I mean, am I beating a dead horse?
No, this is good.
Okay. So if you're at a party, how many of y'all plan on going to a party over the holidays? Anybody? Okay. Everybody raise your hand just for
Yeah.
Okay. If you're at a party and you walk over to the punch bowl and somebody says, hey, well, what do you do? Well, I'm in the real estate business. And they go back to their spouse and they say, what did that guy do? Ah, he's just another agent, another real estate agent. Okay? But if you go to the punch bowl and someone says, hey, well, what do you do? Well, I'm in the real estate business, and what we do for our clients is guarantee to sell their home in 60 days or pay them. What's the first question that comes to their mind? How do you do that? What was yours? Was yours a cynical answer?
Yeah, I said how much.
Yeah. How much? That is actually a valid question. Okay. So when they go back to their spouse and they say, well, who is that? What are they going to say? Well, that's some guy. He's in the real estate and they guarantee to sell houses. You know? Guys, there's a difference between just being one of us and offering something that people remember. Okay. And I'm going to show you in a minute what I do at this point. But first I'm going to show you this. Okay. Okay, we want to brand everything, all right? And when I say brand everything, I think I'm out of order here. Let me see here. And I'll get back to it in a second. Okay, I'm going to explain this in a second. Let me see if I can actually get to... Yeah, this will be all right. Okay. So for some reason, this one on here isn't branded, but this is a card I use when I go preview homes. And what I try to do is whatever everyone else is doing, I do it different. That's everything. As simple as showing houses. So when I show a house or preview a house, I write down when I was there, and inside I write comments for the seller. And everybody else leaves a business card. I leave mine as a tent card in a totally different place. So if everybody's left their business cards on the table at the entry, I leave mine on the middle of the island in the kitchen. Okay? Now why do I do that?
And you stand out.
Stand out. You know how many listings I've gotten over the years?
Trying to steal my listing, that's why.
You know how many listings I've gotten over the years by when it expired?
Right.
They remembered me?
Yeah.
Okay?
I can't remember who's doing the complaint.
Now, the bottom line is that I'm being helpful. You know how many emails I get from a seller that says, hey, thanks so much? Because my information's on there. Now, I've had sellers ask me if I would talk to them about listing their house. And you know what I've said? No, I really don't think that's appropriate at this time. I just left the card to try to be helpful because I know as an agent it's hard to get feedback sometimes. Okay? And I've had many agents call me and say, hey, thanks for leaving that feedback. Okay?
Well, it's
It's
better
real
before I
feedback.
show it.
Yes, ma'am.
Get the feedback.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you ever have any agents complain that you do that?
Never.
Never.
Wow.
Never have. You know what? I always get that question, but no one's ever complained. I mean, here's what I'm doing, guys. Instead of a business card, I'm just writing around here. Hey, your home shows beautifully. The backyard is incredible. The only negative for my buyers is that the family room was a little too small for them. I know you'll sell the home because it's lovely. Good luck. Or something like that. I'm not soliciting their
Don't you have
listing.
electronic feedback though in your marketplace?
Huh?
I'm sure you have
How many
electronic.
agents respond to your electronic feedback requests?
I would say 80%.
Oh, you're a different market than us, and I'm
Yeah.
lucky to get 50.
Do you think it's about 80% here?
I don't get 50%.
No, it's not
I'd say
80.
about 60.
I'd say
Chase them down.
50 or 60, you're chasing them down with 3 or 4
Call and
emails.
text to get it.
Now, so why would this offend anybody? Does this offend anybody if this were left in your listing?
I think it's fishing.
You think it's what?
I think the word might be, is that not the right term? I think you're prospecting as you're touring.
So again, I had advanced knowledge of this because I saw the presentation in
Yeah.
form a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
Created my own card. I do it. I've never gotten any negative feedback.
No negative feedback. See, here's the thing, you guys. And let me share something with you real quick. I've got a market. My background is marketing. Okay, consumer psychology. People on my team, we don't read real estate books. We read consumer psychology, sociology, marketing books, okay? You know, agents have so many perceptions that consumers do not have. So your first reaction was, well, that's a negative. But consumers, it's not a negative at all.
I don't think she meant that the consumer, the homeowner would be
Not
offended
at
with the
all.
listing agent.
listing
Yeah, I've never had a listing agent offended either.
Consumer psychology and what else?
Sociology, social, yeah.
No, I think an agent should be extremely competent and so competent and comfortable with what they're doing that should never intimidate them. I just think that it's you're marketing while you're touring, and I think
Well, why is
it's,
this different than leaving a business card?
well, the industry standard is you leave a card so that the homeowner knows you physically entered their home, because we don't all have security systems that
Yeah.
report that back to the owner. It's just, don't get me wrong,
I
I just think
understand.
that's just my opinion.
No, I understand, you're absolutely entitled to it. I quite sincerely, I tend to be blunt, so I apologize. I'd rather not be standard,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
I know
Oh,
what you
I can
mean by
see-
industry standard, and I'd rather not
Yeah.
be standard
No,
in
I-
everything I do. So what I've chosen in just about every avenue is something different. Have I always been right? No, I've had some real bobs. But as we refine and move forward and try, and you guys, I've been doing this for so long, and you know what's really funny is the sellers, the consumers love it. And I've never had agent complaints. If an agent does not like it, they don't call and tell me, okay? So I typically go off how the consumer responds rather than how the agent responds, okay? Not that I don't like offending agents, of course not, but my measuring stick is gonna be consumers, yes ma'am.
I don't think, in my mind, an agent wouldn't have a problem with it because normally the homeowner is wanting to know, what did they say, what did they say?
Well, it's instant
So if it's
gratification.
there- Yes,
Right.
and if it's
Right.
there and the home, and agent's
Yeah.
going, hey,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't hassle me
Yeah.
right away to get an answer, then
Yeah.
I'm on the other agent to give things, to
Right.
get back.
Right.
So, you know, it seems like a courteous thing
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
mind.
Well, that's how I see it as courteous.
Yeah.
And the time that you were here, I think. is the best
Courteously
part of all.
selfish. I'm just being excessive on it, but the first thing that I thought when I saw that, and I've been in the business since '85, and I've seen it, the cycles,
Mhm.
every cycle. But the first thing I thought was, I wonder if there's a slight ethical violation within that card. Just maybe somewhere marginally where you're making contact with another agent's client before they.
Here, look at it, answer it for yourself.
It's genius, man. That's the
Yeah.
part.
It is
It
genius.
genius.
If you
It
get
really
more
is.
listings.
How many
because
agents
of
in this
that,
room
you
as
deal with
listing
one
agents would
agent
have a
who doesn't
problem
like
with it?
it, who
I mean,
cares?
that's the question.
I'd say I
don't
told all the
think-
agents to use those cards. He's the only one smart enough to do it.
Well, they might see that and be like, I don't like that, but.
Well,
I'm
it's
gonna
the
do
reason,
it.
the reason I say courteous is because I'm taking the time to give that seller what they want anyway. And quite sincerely, if I'm being courteous and a little more professional and somebody takes it the wrong way, there's not a lot I can do about it.
Well, I think that's a good point. You're being professional, which unfortunately in this industry, we have quite a few that aren't professional, but you're showing the fact that you are a professional
Yeah.
agent.
Yeah.
And you aren't getting that call 2 hours later, like some of our our sellers want, have you got any feedback yet? Have you got any feedback
Right.
yet? And it's just an extra
Yeah.
call that, you know, and I have a couple like that. But, and they have the password, they can go in and look
Yeah.
at the, you know,
Yeah.
in central excellence, but they don't. They want the agent to say something to them.
Yeah.
So by doing this, you're gonna help us, I have to make those extra calls.
Yeah, and when
He
somebody,
bypassed you, Betty.
I don't care.
when they send the request for feedback, I do that as well. And in all sincerity, I do have agents call me and thank me for leaving this.
I believe
Okay?
it.
And I want you to know, I'm not offended that you're making the comments.
I'm
That's
just-
absolutely fine. Doesn't bother me a bit.
Obviously,
I'll
it's really just my sensitivity, and the average agent doesn't even begin to operate like that. I just.
Understand.
Yeah.
No, I think you're perfectly correct. I've had agents where I've given feedback and then they've called me up and go, do you have any other suggestions?
Mhm.
You know, and
Mhm.
I take that as a
Yeah,
compliment
yeah.
from the listing agent because we did provide feedback and it was courteous and it was
Right.
professional.
Exactly.
And they end up calling you back 2 weeks later and go, hey, I'm still in the market. You got any ideas? You've been in the house twice.
Yeah.
And I think that's also building
Yeah.
relationships in the industry that come back and pay you back in the future.
And I agree. I think that giving feedback, once again, is something that I will always do when I get a request from an agent or a phone call, always. So anyway, let's continue on the branding deal. You've got to keep branding, you guys. This is the pre-list package. By the way, when someone calls and says, we want to talk about listing your house, this is delivered to their doorstep with a thank you note and a box of chocolate almonds from Trader Joe's.
Oh, those are good.
Oh, yeah. So they get this, and inside it's got some homework for them to do, all right? Do any of y'all use a pre-list package?
More.
Okay, the most impactful thing I use in listing real estate is a pre-listing package. Now, I don't do them all like this in a leather bound. A lot of times they're just in a folder, and they can keep them. But in Berry Creek and in my niche, I actually use leather bound folders because I want to stand out. Now what this does, this is called a pre-sale package. What it does is give them information about me, details about me, about how I market, and it's got marketing pieces in it, you guys. Now on this side is some homework for them. It asks them about their house, what they think about their house, what I need to know about their house, and it's got a list of references they can call. Now, let me tell you why we do this. Y'all want to see this one?
Yes.
Let me tell you why we do this. Y'all ever heard of a company called Encyclopedia Britannica? You haven't. You're way too young, I'm sure. But there was a day when we didn't have information online. We actually had to look at a book. Okay, and encyclopedias were the internet of the 70s. Every piece of information you wanted was in there. All right. Now, Encyclopedia Britannica had the most impressive door-to-door sales force in the world, with maybe the only competitor really that could make the same claim might have been like Fuller Brush or somebody like that. Okay. So what Encyclopedia Britannica did was they went door to door and they sold encyclopedias, and my parents were the proud victims. I mean, owners of the sales. Okay. So Encyclopedia Britannica realized they had a problem. States, because their salespeople were so good, states started initiating the 3-day right of rescission.
The what?
3-day right of rescission. Once you buy something from them, you got 3 days to change your mind. So they had close to a 40% rejection rate after that. Wow. So they'd sell them, and then people would call and say, "Well, we don't want them." Now they called in a marketing consultant. And the marketing consultant said, "You know what? People don't want to be sold. They want to make buying decisions. Let them make a buying decision." So here's what they did. They basically took the order form, instead of the salesman writing on it and filling it out, they turned it around and put it in front of this is the only thing that changed. Turned it around and put it in front of the customer. The customer filled out the order, which encyclopedias they wanted, how their payment plan was going to work, did all of that. Their rescission rate fell down to less than 10%. Okay, so what's in here is some things, and I've passed this around a lot. I don't know if even all the pages are there, but it's 2 pages for them to fill out. And one is tell us your concerns. And on a scale of 1 to 5, are you concerned about ads, about showings, about commissions, about, there's all these list of things. And so I can go over what their concerns are when I see those. The other one is tell us about your house, because there may be some things they're proud of that you don't know. And when you start marketing what they are proud of, now they think you really are on their side. So here's what happens. Whenever I go to a listing appointment and they've got those sheets filled out, guess what I have? I've got a listing. It's never failed. I've never walked into an appointment where those sheets were filled out and not walked out with a signed listing. If I walk in and those sheets aren't filled out, I know I've got a little work cut out for me. Does that make sense, you guys? Mm-hmm. Once again, that's sociology, that's psychology. You guys, there are consumer rules that are in place. We can use them or we cannot use them. Okay? And that's one of them. Yes, sir.
You don't have a seller's disclosure in there. Have you thought about that?
No, not in that. My assistant actually sends that electronically.
Prior to the listing
Yes, sir,
appointment?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah. She sends, when I have an appointment, she sends all the disclosures, and I don't know if y'all have WCID disclosures. If you're in a water district, y'all have those?
We do call MUDs.
The water districts, the seller disclosure, septic disclosure, she sends all those ahead of time.
Great.
All right? So we brand that to Berry Creek. We brand everything to Berry Creek. You guys, the web pages, everything, all right? So you can see that as an example at the top, see berrycreekhomes.com. And you can obviously tell by the picture I need a new shop because I have less hair than I did in that one. Here's another example of a website. This is a landing page, but it's branded to Berry Creek. Berry Creek homeowners can now experience a new level of real estate service. How much is your Berry Creek home worth? So you guys, all I've done is really take, what do I do in my real estate business? And I've branded the same thing right down the line in my farm. So instead of what is your home worth, what is your Berry Creek home worth? Okay? You guys, in marketing, targeting is extremely important. Okay? One of the best things you can do is to identify the person you're talking to. So if you get a piece of mail that says, thinking about selling your home, then you're targeting people who might want to sell their home. But it's even better if you say, thinking about selling your Berry Creek home. Now you're talking to people in Berry Creek. I mean, the best time, what was your name?
Kyle.
If you got a piece that said, Kyle, are you thinking about selling your Berry Creek home? That's the best, because we're targeting Kyle personally and identifying that he is a homeowner in Berry Creek. Does that make sense, you guys?
Okay, so EDDM is the cheapest way to do direct mail.
It is, correct.
And you're talking about variable data,
Right.
personalizing, it doesn't overlap, precisely with postal zip code delivery zones. Would you say pay the extra money for the variable data?
Everybody understand his question?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay, EDDM is basically, the post office just sends out the postcard to everybody within a carrier route.
Yes.
Okay? And it's much, much cheaper because they don't have to do all the sorting, all right? So it costs a little bit more if because when it gets there, it says occupant or owner.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually do pay a little extra to have their name on it in their
Okay.
address.
Okay.
And also in a carrier route, it doesn't always stop at the edge of a neighborhood.
It doesn't.
Because you may say, think about selling your Berry Creek home, and it's going to a homeowner in Forest Creek, you know. So I do pay a little extra, and I use online marketing site called The Personal Marketing Company, which is tpmco.com. Now, I know y'all understood that because y'all are from Texas. If I'm in California and I say tpmco.com, they go, huh? And I have to say it like 5 times.
Can you say it again?
T is in Tom, P is in Paul, M is in Mom, C is in cat, O is in O.
So what is that for?
It's, they send out postcards and stuff. All you really gotta do is, you don't even have to upload them if you don't want to, but you upload the postcard, upload your mailing list, and then just merge it.
There was one
How much
website I
is
went
it,
to,
you
and
know?
they found
What's
the
that?
addresses for me.
What's that?
There was one website I went to, and they found the addresses for me and did everything.
There's another one, yeah.
So you have to have all the addresses uploaded?
Well, I choose to.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to, like she said, you can find sites that'll do the addresses for you.
Okay.
But you're gonna see why I do what I do in just a minute,
Okay.
okay? And you might walk away from going, I don't care how much money I can make, that's just too much work. You know, so I don't know. Anyway, Facebook business page is branded specifically for Berry Creek. You can see I've got the Berry Creek entrance and all that up there. And I post, stuff on Berry Creek Real Estate. Now, here's the thing, you guys. And I want to step back to when I said the leader. I didn't claim to be the most knowledgeable person in Berry Creek, because I'm not. I'm not even a member of the club. But I do know more about Berry Creek real estate than anybody else. And I had an agent call me and say, well, how can you put that on your card? I'm the specialist in Berry Creek. She literally, she called me and said that. And I said, I really apologize. I didn't mean to offend you in any way. I know you know so much about Berry Creek, but I have sold a few homes there, so I think it's okay that I can send these out. She was very, very upset, and you'll see this in a second. I preview every single home in the market. She will not let me preview her houses. She actually tells her sellers not to let me come see them.
What do you do?
Oh my
Fake
God.
show 'em?
Huh?
What do you do? Fake
I just don't
show
go
'em?
see them. It's okay. I just don't go see them.
She's
She
really
doesn't want me to. It's
not
okay.
helping her sellers, that's for sure.
No, she's not. So basically, branding, you guys, is branding is them matching you with the service that they need and want, and that's an expert in Berry Creek or whatever your farm is. Okay. So I'm going to get into another little deal here real quick. Make sure that's it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so branding, your websites are branded, your cards are branded, your packages are branded. Now let's talk about marketing. Who do you market to? And I'm going to give you, if I don't know what your, do we need a break, or do you want me to just push straight through to 6 o'clock?
Well, we might need a break by 5.
Okay. So you want to just let them go to the restroom when they want to, or do you want to take a break? It's up to y'all.
Let's take 5 minutes.
5
Okay,
minutes.
5 minutes, then we'll get into the meat of it.
Okay.